welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're jumping into something that's, well, it's not just a huge part of your NMLS exam, it's literally the foundation of your entire career as an MLO. We're talking about fair lending. Let's get right into it. So, before we get buried in all the laws and the acronyms, and trust me, there are a lot of them, let's just boil it all down. What do you think is the single most important, the number one golden rule in all of mortgage lending? That's it right there. It's that simple and it's that profound. This is your North Star for every single decision you're ever going to make as an MLO. Seriously, every single law we're about to talk about, it all comes back to this one powerful idea. If you can get this into your DNA, you're already halfway there. All right, so let's get into it. You want to build a solid career, right? Well, that starts with a solid foundation. So think of what's coming up next as the official playbook, the rulebook for making sure you're playing fair every single time. You know, it's really easy to look at these laws as just a bunch of hoops to jump through to avoid getting fined, but it's so much bigger than that. The whole point is to make sure that everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from, gets a fair shot at getting a loan. It's a massive responsibility, and it all starts with knowing the playbook. Okay, so let's talk about the absolute centerpiece of that rulebook. This is the big one, the one you're definitely 100% going to see on your NMLS exam. Let's talk about ECOA. So ECOA stands for the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. You might also hear it called Regulation B, same thing. And it's basically the heavyweight champion of fair lending laws. It says flat out that you cannot discriminate against any applicant for any reason at any point in the process. We're talking from the first ad they see all the way to the closing table. It covers the whole shebang. Now, this slide right here, this is pure gold for your exam. These are the protected classes under ECOA. You absolutely have to know these by heart. I'm not kidding. Make flashcards, do whatever you need to do because you will be tested on this. You cannot make any credit decision based on any of these factors. It's a hard and fast rule, full stop. Okay, so we've got the main rule down. Now let's look at the common ways people break that rule. Think of these as the major fouls in the game, the things that'll get you a penalty flag every time. These are exactly what you'll see in the scenario questions on your exam and what you have to avoid in the real world. All right, this is a super important distinction, and it's a favorite on the NMLS exam. Discrimination isn't always obvious. It comes in two flavors: disparate treatment, which is intentional, and disparate impact, which is unintentional. And that's the scary part. You can break the law without even trying to. So let's break this down. Okay, first up is a big one with a really dark history: redlining. The name is literal. Lenders used to take a map, draw an actual red line around certain neighborhoods, usually minority neighborhoods, and just flat out refuse to lend there. It's totally illegal now, of course, but the damage it caused, well, we're still dealing with that today. And here's what it can look like today. The physical red pen might be gone, but the effect can be the same. If a bank's lending practices just so happen to avoid certain neighborhoods, or if they offer worse deals there, that's modern redlining. And as an MLO, you have to be aware of this. You're part of that system, so you need to know what your company is doing. All right, next is disparate treatment. This is the one we talked about being intentional. It's the most obvious kind of discrimination. It's when you look at an applicant, see something from that list of protected classes, and consciously decide to treat them differently because of it. It's as straightforward and as illegal as it gets. This is a classic exam question scenario right here. You've got two people, applicant A and applicant B. They have almost identical credit scores, income, everything, but one gets approved and the other gets denied. And the only real difference is their race. That is a slam dunk case of disparate treatment. It's a clear violation, and if you see this on the test, it's an easy point if you remember this. Okay, now for the tricky one, disparate impact. This is where things get subtle. It's not about what you meant to do, it's about what the result of your actions was. You can have a policy that seems totally fair on the surface, one that you apply to every single person. But if that policy ends up hurting a protected group more than others, well, you could be in hot water. This is the one that trips people up. And this is a perfect example of how that works. Let's say a bank has a minimum income policy. That seems neutral, right? But what if that rule disproportionately screens out applicants from certain minority communities? Even if they didn't mean for that to happen, the impact is discriminatory. And unless the bank can prove that policy is an absolute business necessity, they've got a big problem. All right, another big foul you need to watch out for is steering. Look, your job is simple. Find the best possible loan for your client based on their qualifications, period. Steering is when you guide them somewhere else. You push them towards a specific type of loan, often a more expensive one, not because it's best for them, but because of who they are. For example, an MLO might see a minority applicant and just assume they won't qualify for a good conventional loan. So they push them towards a high-interest, subprime product without even trying. That is a huge, huge breach of the trust your client puts in you. You're putting them at a disadvantage for no good reason, and it is completely against the law. And last but not least, we have the really ugly one: predatory lending. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's about being a predator. It's taking advantage of people, especially vulnerable borrowers, with loan terms that are unfair, deceptive, or just plain abusive. We're talking hidden fees, crazy balloon payments, or high-pressure tactics to get them into a loan that you know they can't afford. Think about it: a loan with a bunch of hidden fees that weren't explained, or a massive payment due at the end that catches the borrower completely by surprise. That's not helping someone buy a home, that's setting a trap. Your job is to be transparent, to educate, to empower. Anything less is just not okay, and this is where your personal ethics are truly tested. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what not to do. That's important, for sure. But the best defense is a good offense, right? So let's flip the script and talk about your winning plays, how you can be proactive and make sure these violations never even have a chance to happen. So here's your game plan in 3 simple steps. 1, training. You have to stay sharp and know these laws inside and out. 2, audits. Your company needs to be looking at its own data, searching for any patterns that might signal a problem. And 3, community engagement. You got to get out there and listen to people to make sure you're actually serving everyone. And this isn't just for some compliance department. As an MLO, you are on the front lines of all 3 of these things. All right, we've gone through the rules of the game, the fouls, and the winning strategy. So let's wrap this all up. Let's talk about what this really means for you and for the legacy you're going to build in this industry. Look, at the end of the day, fair lending isn't just about passing a test or following a law. Every application you touch, that's someone's dream of owning a home. Your commitment to being fair isn't just about compliance. It's about building trust, it's about making our communities stronger, and it's about what people will say about you when you're not in the room. You're building your reputation with every single loan. So as you're hitting the books for your exam and as you start your career, I want you to keep this one question in your mind. How are you going to be a champion for fairness? Because answering that question day in and day out is what separates the MLOs who just have a license from the ones who actually make a difference. Good luck.